What's up, Haley? Thank you so much for joining us on the Alpha Girl Confidence podcast. As I was just, we were just saying that you're the first one back after the little holiday break we've had. So I'm excited to get into this conversation.
I'm excited too, because I love what you're doing. I love your passion, your enthusiasm, your connection with all girls and women in sports. So truly
Yeah,
happy to
I
be here.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to just your expertise and just the few minutes that we've been talking already. I'm like, I like the vibe. I like the vibe we've got going on. So with that being said, I don't know a ton about you. Like I have done my research and stuff, but this is kind of a new connection, so to say. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about you, kind of like why your journey and getting into sports psychology. I know you're a ski person, but yeah, give us kind of a background on who is Haley.
Sure. And I do share this story often, but I think for this particular Alpha Girl Confidence, I think it's probably the greatest opener.
Yeah.
So I grew up as a ski racer from Canada, and I was fairly good at 12. And I was asked to go and compete in, the junior world championships for my age group. It was a big event, and I was bib number 9, and bib number 8 is in the starting gate. I have about 45 seconds until it's my turn to go and compete. And my coach pulls out $100 bill, places it in front of my nose, and tells me that he bet on me to win this race. He then looks at me and tells me that he bet on a different athlete who was competing in a race the week before, a race that I was not in, and he lost. And he's not prepared to lose today.
Oh, wow. Okay. This could go one of two ways.
Well, exactly, Shay. On one hand, anger, fear, frustration, worry. How could a coach bet on their athlete? What if he's wrong? What if I make a mistake and let him down?
Yeah.
Or if my coach believes in me so much that he's willing to bet on me, why shouldn't I believe in myself?
For sure. So I'm excited to hear which one did you choose?
Well, I have to tell you that in that moment, he also finished off with stepping away from my face, pointing me in the direction of the starting gate, smiled and told me also to go have fun.
It's like, a little conflicting.
Yeah. I do remember though, wow, if my coach has high expectations, doesn't that mean I'm doing something right? And then my mind went to, I've won every event. This was a slalom event. I've won every event so far this year. This is a technical course, which is my style. I'm strong. The weather's perfect. And all the reasons why.
All the good things, yeah.
All the good things. I went down, I won. My coach came down, congratulated me, kept the $100 for himself. But he looked at me and he said, it's amazing what your performance can be when you get your head straight. And then 2 weeks later, he brought a sports psychologist to come and speak to my team. And I just thought this was the coolest thing. And I told my parents at 12 that I wanted to be a sports psych gal when I grew up.
Oh my gosh, that's such a cool story. Like, okay, number one, I want to break this down because the coach putting the $100 bill in front of your nose, for most 12-year-old girls, I would say that would cause, and not even just 12-year-old girls, but especially 12-year-old girls, that would cause a lot of anxiety, put on a lot of pressure, I have to do this. I don't want to let my coach down, right? And like you said, it was that, and I know you talk about this, the fork in the road a lot, right? There's this fork in the road where you can decide which mindset and which way of thinking you want to go down. And it's incredibly, impressive that you at such a young age were aware enough to choose hey, he believes in me. It's a great day. Thinking of all the positive things. I think that's so mature of a 12-year-old and makes sense to why you are, a sports psychologist. It seems like it's just in your blood.
But I think it was also, I believe in nurture and nature. And I believe this particular coach. Now, believe me, I'm not telling coaches to bet on their athletes. This is not where I'm going. But Shay, he is one of, if not my favorite coach of all time, because he took the energy and he made the focus to really learn about his athletes. And he taught me, not just in that moment, as we were leading up, dealing with adversity, embracing certain pressures, not being afraid of pressure, but actually using it. So I really feel that he he was able to connect with me, learn about me, teach me. I don't think he bet on every athlete on our team, but he took the time to really learn what made us tick.
Yes,
And
for
then
sure.
he helped us to emphasize that.
Right. So it wasn't like number one, you didn't have a great relationship. Like it sounded like you did have a great relationship, but also he probably knew that saying that was going to help you. And whereas maybe another athlete, he'd be like, no, like he or she can't handle that.
Right.
Right.
I
Yeah.
would like to think so. I mean, we never sat down and had that. But then even for him to bring a sports psychologist to come and speak to my team,
Yeah.
he wasn't, wasn't just something he was thinking off the cuff. He put a lot of preparation. And as you know, being you not only are you a coach, but you do so much mental training, like you've learned about that. And I think he did too.
Well, and that's also kind of interesting. Like back when I was 12, like I don't know our age difference, but like I think it would have been really quite unheard of to bring like a sports psychologist in. And maybe skiing is a little bit different, but like I couldn't imagine like when I was 12, like my club coaches bringing in a sports psychologist. Like that would have been like insane, right? Would have been so incredibly helpful, but it's just that wasn't really a thing that we knew about or really had access to.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, when I went through my PhD program, there was two of us in my program.
Oh,
Now
wow.
the programs are much bigger, and I didn't really even have that many to choose from. So you're right. And then so fat, rewind another, 15 years before that, and then yeah, it was intense for him to
So
do that.
like what other in your work, what kind of athletes, and I know you don't work just with athletes, but like do you work with a wide range? Do you have more of like a certain kind of athlete that you work with? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So how my journey started was I had all this new content, the sports psychology content. So I went to the sport I knew, because I was not only a ski racer, I was also a ski racing coach, and then sports psychology. So I went to the sport I knew. So I started there, and now any sport, any level of development. Now, when a parent contacts me and tells me that their 8-year-old is suffering from self-belief, I never turn down an opportunity to speak to a child, but I'm going to be having a conversation with the parents
Yeah,
in that
I
moment.
totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, I've had, I at one point there was a figure skater. I think she was 9 at the time. I did some one-on-ones with her, but I was like, like I don't know. It's just for me, I learned that age is, I don't know what it was, and you can probably speak to it more eloquently than I can, but I just feel like it's like we don't need to be talking about this stuff with the age. They just need to go play and have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then in the moment when they speak, we have to be aware for certain teaching moments, like,
Yeah.
Sports psychology opportunities. I've gone into many sport teams, and while they're having their cool down or in their conditioning, or even up on the what their sport is, so on the field, on the mountain, in the pool, I'll contribute. But to have a designated,
Time and
sports psychology
yeah.
session every week when
That
when
makes
you're
sense.
young, I'll never
Yeah,
say no, but I need to know more about the situation before I say
absolutely.
before I choose that as the right method.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, okay, so getting into it now, when I was doing
Okay.
my stocky research, which like isn't all research kind of stalking, right? In a way, like anyways, when I was going through your social media
Preparation.
preparation, yeah. When I was doing my preparation work on you, one of your I think it is actually your most recent posts where you posted about like failure is an option. And it's interesting. You started the video by saying like so much of motivational speak is like failure's not an option. And on one hand, like, okay, like we can understand like where that is coming from. But for a lot of the girls that I work with, because I mostly work with middle school girls, right? Mostly. Not having failure as an option creates a ton of pressure, right? And pressure is like one of the biggest obstacles of not knowing how to navigate the pressure. And so talk a little bit about why failure is an option and why that's important for any athlete or just any person in general who's trying to go out and like perform and do well at something.
Yeah. That's a great topic, and I think it's probably one of the most valuable lessons. So why is failure an option? Because it happens. And there is not a single performer out there that has won every single time, that has been perfect every single time. Now, of course, we want to put our blinders on and only focus on, but there's this idea of just accepting the reality so that it no longer adds unnecessary negative anxiety and the need to be perfect and the inability to actually look at how I'm going to deal with failure, because I don't want to let my mind go there. To me is, like you said, it's pressure, but we have so much pressure in our life already that's not going anywhere. This is a pressure that we can unload. So I actually look at it as like, oh my God, okay, I may fail. I may not get every athlete may not choose to work with me. Every team may not choose me. Every person may not like my post. What I have to say, I actually may be wrong and I may have to correct myself. Whew, like what a relief.
Mm-hmm.
What a relief. And now I can think about things that are more productive.
Yes.
And more relevant and give me the better opportunity, increase my probability of success. And baseball, I was just actually watching one of your podcasts with Alyssa and first female, coach, and she's the coach for the Giants. It's just an interesting thing where, baseball in itself is a failure-oriented sport.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like if you're bad, I mean, I'm not good at baseball stats, but in like softball, even for example, if you're batting like 400, that's like incredibly good, right?
Yeah, you miss they say, generally speaking, 7 out of 10
7
times.
7 out of 10. Mm-hmm.
Whew, okay, and you know what those baseball players know how to do now? They know how to strike out and then move on.
Yep.
Now, do you get upset? Yes. Mm-hmm. Can you get frustrated? Yes. Some upsets are smaller than others, and that's okay because that's normal too. I would never want an athlete. It actually happens often. An athlete will come to me, not when they're happy. They come to me when they're upset and something's not going right. And I say, good. Be upset, because they just say, like, I don't want to be upset. I don't want to be frustrated about this performance. And I'm thinking to myself, well, for a moment, I do want you to be upset. I do want you to be frustrated. It means you care. Yeah. It means you wanted something better. It actually is a sign of confidence. Mm-hmm. So be upset for a moment. And then the best athletes, the best performers are the ones that can acknowledge that upset. Failure is an option. It happens. Yeah. And then here's the thing about the best performers. They're not the perfect performers. They're the ones that best recover.
I love that. That's a moment that I'm tagging. And also, like, when failure is an option, I feel like it allows you to focus more on the process rather than and the things you can control, rather than like the outcome and the result of the thing. It's like, okay, I can take a deep breath. I can have a little bit more fun. I can just focus on doing, what I've been preparing to do, rather than like this like pushing and this forcing, so to say, right?
Such a good point. Yeah, because that relief, and the body reacts, so you're not so tied to the outcome, because what if I fail, which then creates all this tension and bracing, and then no athlete can perform their best like this.
Right.
We need coordination and fluidity, and then you can focus on the process, like you just said.
Yeah, I mean, and with tied to that coordination and fluidity, a lot of times our overthinking, right, can lead to like so much of the time, the simple answer to so many problems in sports is stop thinking about it, right? It's like we just think so much, and when we think so much, it's this like paralysis by overanalysis, right? It's like, as an athlete, like, how to do the thing, but when I kind of, my analogy is like, when you think too much, it's like putting the brake on, and when you can let go and think less, it's like, okay, now we can push on the gas a little bit and go. But I think it's one of the hardest things for us humans to do, is to like manage our thinking and stop thinking, because we're just thinking all the time. And so what advice would you give? Like, what are some ways the athletes can think less in order to just play and like have more fun?
Sure. So the first thing I think the first thing we need to understand is this: it's just our thinking. We are not our thoughts. And I use this for myself all the time. If I find myself I get carried away, and sometimes it's positive, but it's just too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's negative. Haley, it's just your thinking. And you don't have to believe everything you're thinking. And you don't have to, so it's just your thinking kind of helps me put a period and just like, whoa, let's get back to center. So that would be my first, first strategy, just understanding that you're not your thoughts and it's just my thinking.
Yeah.
And then the second piece, you just nailed it. You said, think less. I like to think less, more strategically. In fact, people come to a sports psych person and some of them are still afraid. Oh my goodness, she's going to make me think so much. And coaches think I'm going to, at first, sometimes we have to do some brainstorming and some free journaling, but free talking. And then it's thinking less, more strategically. And one powerful technique, which I do with a lot of my athletes. So a lot of athletes have the same principle that you just said. I don't want to think, I just want to go. Yeah. In competition, why can I practice really well and then in competition I can't? I just want to stop thinking and just go. Again, it's another concept I understand. But when you have all the anxiety and the what ifs and the fears and the pressures, and nobody can just stop thinking. So what I recommend is choosing one. It's like in golf, you have one swing thought. In competition, you have one thought. So it's not just not thinking at all or thinking less, but more strategically. So what is that one thing? And it depends on the athlete. Some athletes just really need to come from a place of confidence. Yeah. So you just focus on what you know you do well. Yeah. What are your strengths? And professional athletes always say that it comes down to the fundamental skills. Mm-hmm. Well, we have fundamental strengths. So choose one that you believe in. Is it your agility? Is it your intellect? Is it your hand-eye coordination? Is it your cheerleading? Is it whatever it might be? Right. Your strength, your passion, your whatever. And you lead with that. Other athletes need to focus on that area of improvement. They want to focus on that thing that they've been working on so hard. Others, it's more anything technical, tactical, or strategic, in my opinion, as long as it's technical, tactical, or strategic. Mm-hmm. That's the thought that you lead with.
So it's like, okay, what am I? So first of all, they kind of need to be aware and maybe even think, because maybe they've never thought about, well, what am I actually like really good at? What are my strengths? So like identifying that and then having that like to remember that thing when they feel the thoughts coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just working with a group. They were 5 athletes. It was a virtual group session. And I had them think about their top 3 strengths. And they were 14, 15, 16. And some of them couldn't. Yeah. They couldn't. And I hope they know that I come from a place of love. I hope everyone that's watching and listening, they know that I come from a place of love. But to me, that's weak.
Yeah, totally.
If an athlete can't find a strength, that's a weakness that we need to work on immediately. For sure. And also then acknowledging it as something else, because we're very quick to talk about all the things we're doing wrong.
Yep. And we're very quick to look at other people's strengths and see the gap between, this is their strength and I'm not as good as them. And it's like this, well, that's not your strength. So like you can't compare, somebody's strengths to your weaknesses or however you want to say it. But yeah, I think that's so important and so simple. Like I go to that all the time. Like focus on your strengths. If you're at a tryout, right? And it's such a high pressure situation. It's like, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're really good at? Okay, now go focus on those things and do those things really well, because you don't have to be everything to everyone. You just need to do what you're really good at.
I mean, we watch professional sports. We want to be a professional athlete. Let's look what they're doing. In their interviews, the professional athletes that are being interviewed, they're not shy to say what they're doing well. Now, they're also going to say, we need to do this better, but they're not shy to say, we've got this, we're doing this, I brought this, and this is what we're going to do to get better. In addition, these athletes are walking onto that field, running onto that field, jumping into the pool, getting on the court, whatever it may be, highlighting their strengths.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that they get to stay on that professional team.
Yeah, I was going to say you're not going to be a professional if you are, not leaning into those strengths. You're never going to be able to get to that point even.
No, so let's learn. And no matter what age you're at, if we're watching, if we're modeling them and we're idolizing them, let's model them for real and use what they're using in whatever sport and level you're at.
Yeah. Okay. So give us one more. So first thing, I don't know if I want to use the word combat overthinking because I don't know if we're battling it or we can even get into that. Like, are we in a battle with our thoughts or do we kind of allow some of those thoughts? Let's talk about that for a sec. Because I think a lot of times it's like we need to battle our thoughts, and it does kind of seem like this internal like push and pull, right, between thoughts. Would you say it's more we're battling our thoughts, we're navigating, we're managing, we're allowing? How would you kind of, I guess, frame that, and how do you see that?
So I love what you say, and I use it all the time. Give yourself some grace. Understand that we're human beings and that thoughts come. Overthinking happens. You are not alone. It's a human thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's battling because sometimes the resistance makes it harder.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just accept that I'm thinking, and then we got to get back in control. So that's why I like to make a separation between us and our thoughts.
For sure. Yeah.
Because then it's easier for us to get back in control. And one other technique, you asked for a third one, so I'll give it to you. It's called thought stopping. And that is, for example, if everyone can close their eyes and you just picture a stop sign would be the simplest one. You just picture this big red stop sign. And then that is a pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
Or you can go through a little bit of an imagery. I once had an athlete, she came up with this all on her own. She put that thought that she didn't want. And sometimes it's not always negative. Sometimes it's just not necessary.
Yeah.
Like it's just overthinking, like you say.
Yep.
So she put all that overthinking on the bottom of her shoe, and then she would physically just go it's like she had gum on the bottom of her shoe, and she would scrape.
I love that.
I had another athlete, she lived on the beach. So she, those skipping rocks.
Yep.
So she put all of her overthinking, symbolic imagery, overthinking into that skipping rock, and she threw it out into the water and she watched it skip, 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 skip away. So thought stopping. And then after that pattern interrupt, then it's what's going to be the more productive thought now.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's kind of the process that I'll walk through with my girls. It's like, number one, can we just take a deep breath, be aware that it's there? Number two, I call it a physical reset, but it's the same thing. So what I used to do when I played soccer and we were on real grass is I would pick up the grass and throw it. That was my way of just like that. Yeah, like you said, that pattern interrupt. I had a teammate that would just do a really big, loud clap, right? So I think it's really important to find that something physical to kind of stop that pattern of that overthinking. And then, like you said, it's now, can we choose and implant a new, more productive, more useful thought? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not wearing it right now, but I have this shirt that says, move your body, still your mind.
Ah, that's beautiful. That's yeah. I mean, a still mind for me is something that I, work on every day, but it's that's the peaceful mind, the still mind, that's a place. That's why I meditate and get out into nature and do all those things, is just for that still mind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not an empty mind, but it's, that calm, that quiet, that clear, still mind where you get to take some control over what your next thought's going to be.
For sure. For sure. So kind of circling back to comparison a little bit. So I just had a call with one of my athletes, and she's the recruiting age. And she was just talking about how she keeps seeing people posting about their offers that they're getting on social media, and how it's just making her feel like she's behind, and it's making her scared, right? She's just scared that there's not going to be enough spots, or that she's not going to get the offer. So comparison is something that, if you're human, you're going to do it, right? And specifically in the recruiting space at that age where you're seeing everything on social media. For me, it's I didn't have that. I had teammates I could compare myself to, but I wasn't seeing what everyone in the world was doing. So what are some ways that and we'll talk specifically about recruiting, we can get more broad too, but like, what are some ways that athletes who are going through that journey can kind of like manage or stop that comparison? And I know maybe focusing on strengths is definitely one way to go. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. It's the world in which we live, right? This is the new, I mean, youth these days just has a lot more pressure because of all this stimuli.
Yeah.
And you don't have to look on your phone. You don't have to open that up if you don't want to. And again, let's use our professional athletes. Isn't it like zero dark 23 or zero dark? You know, LeBron James like turns everything off. Steph Curry turns everything off during playtime. So you do have that option. I'll just put it out there. It is an option.
Absolutely.
But let's go. But I'll talk about another scenario, talking about that fork in the road, emotional and mental fork in the road. You can look at it as comparison in a bad way with jealousy and envy and fear. Or you could be, this is like your greatest tip sheet. Like this is like a cheat sheet. What are they doing? And am I doing it?
Yeah.
And, you know, what can I learn from them? And let me make sure that I'm doing, you know, that. And, you know, it's almost like, it's like everyone's showing everyone else their cards.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's true.
And so I don't know that it would help people to compare, because what are they doing that I'm not? Mm-hmm. Look, they got the interview and I didn't, which is unfortunate and hard. And there's a little bit of that. That's life. That's competition. That's life. So we have to look at that. But then another way is to be like, okay, I'm going to use them. This is true competition. Thank you, opponents, for showing up today.
Yeah.
I'm going to use your energy to maximize my energy to do my very best.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And, you know, and make something happen for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And failure does happen.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, related to that, it's like if you see, say, for me, like when I had teammates getting recruited by North Carolina and like all the best schools, it was a little bit of like that comparison of like, like I'm not as good as them. But also it was like, I'm playing with these girls every single day. I'm hanging with them. If they're getting recruited by the best schools, then that's like a good sign for me that I'm just almost as good as, maybe not the UNC, right? But like I can hang with them. If I can hang with them, then I can still go to a really good school. So even using that, like you see all these people like, oh, I just played against her and I hung with her. I was better than her. It's like, great. Use that as like a way of, you know what, if she's getting recruited, then I will too. I'm just waiting for the right fit kind of deal.
Great point. Yeah. It's you can either use it to create more fear and anxiety, or you can use it to create challenge and passion and excitement and confidence.
Yeah. I mean, that's really true for basically everything. Is there always is that fork in the road, isn't there? There's always two ways, at least two ways to look at it, two ways to think, two ways to act, based on whatever scenario you're going through in life. And you learned that, you saw that at a really young age, right? And so how do you help develop that instinct? I don't know if it's an instinct or just a practice, but how do you help develop that in your athletes to be able to look at two options instead of just going down the one road, but seeing that there is another way?
To do exactly what you just did. You know, there's conversations that happen, and I encourage parents to do that too. You know, no matter, even if a great thing happened, let's look at how it could have gone a different way. Just the openness and the communication and the understanding of that fork in the road. It's the training. And we don't train while we perform. We train so that we can bring it to the performance. And so in a moment when, you know, an athlete doesn't get the outcome they want, okay, well, I've gone through this type of training. They're not having to deal with it while their emotions are so high. They've already gone through the training. Mm-hmm. So now that their emotions are so high, they have a little bit of training to use. So that's one way, just to have these discussions. So like you and I said, I don't know if young athletes need to have sports psychology one-on-one sessions, but these types of conversations can happen all the time in a very informal,
right?
And you could take the simplest of moments and make them teachable moments.
Yeah. That's so true.
So that's really one way. And the other way is I'm a big believer, no matter how young you are, in learning to take responsibility. So what does that mean? Yes, we all need to give ourselves some grace, but whenever I say give yourself grace, I always end with never let yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
So, the weather wasn't great. It wasn't your day. You didn't sleep well. That makes sense. It was really hard. The plane got delayed. You didn't, it was a red eye. I mean, like all these things contributed to your performance. And did we take responsibility for everything that we have responsibility for, win or lose? So that we don't always have to focus on what's out here. We're also evaluating ourselves and never letting yourself off the hook. We can learn that at a young age. We all know if we could have given just a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a huge thing, just that personal accountability, right? Because like you said, when you don't take responsibility, it does lead to this kind of victim mentality of you just being pulled one way and the other, and you're not really in control. Right. But when you take responsibility, you're more in the driver's seat. Right. And obviously there's so many things in life that we can't control, but there are the things that we can control and take responsibility for, like our thoughts and our attitudes and our effort and, our communication and stuff like that. And so I think that's just a great way to I never thought about it that way in terms of it puts you in the driver's seat when you do take responsibility.
And that, in my humble opinion, is the secret to being able to embrace pressure, because you're now exposing yourself to it instead of the pressure just coming and coming and coming. You're arming yourself. So if someone gets recruited and you didn't, I mean, that sucks. It sucks. And let's not make that, it's not happy. It's not a happy moment. But if you take back responsibility and you always, there's always something unless you're just going to sit there and get stale and burn out and quit, you're going to be resilient because it's a great acronym: pride, personal responsibility, and delivering excellence. And you're going to take that somewhere.
I love that. Goodness. Personal. Okay, well, let's say it again. Pride. So personal responsibility.
And delivering excellence.
What is, when you say delivering excellence, talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it is not about being perfect. I can tell you what it's not about.
I think that's probably where a lot of people go, though, is delivering excellence means, it's so closely tied to perfection. And I think, with that word excellence.
I'll give you an example. So we're always, looking to improve certain techniques and tactics and strategies. And sometimes our body doesn't immediately listen to listen to the coach's feedback.
Right.
You have to, this is where thinking is important. You have to tell yourself, you have to command your body to do what you're asking it to do. And so if an athlete comes to me and says, today in training, my body, I wasn't getting it. I wasn't doing it. My question to them is, so it wasn't perfect. It wasn't a good physical performance. And then my question to them is, were you thinking about that one? Were you commanding your body using your mind? And most often, it's not the whole time. I thought about it a little bit, but then I got distracted. So that's not excellence. Excellence would be again, I'm not about allowing you to let yourself off the hook. I'm going to hold you accountable and push you. The only way for your body to listen to a new, never before heard command is for you to repeat it. So the excellence is in you doing whatever you can, controlling whatever you can, and repeating it and over and over and over and over and over again, so that your body says, okay, I get it.
Shush.
I heard you. Now be quiet and move on to something
and let
else.
me do my work. Yeah.
Let me do my work. So that would be a sign of excellence. So what is it? It's the effort on the things that we do control. I remember when I first learned, I love paddleboarding and I love to do yoga on paddle boards, and I was doing a headstand on a paddleboard. I can't control the waves. I can't control, there are certain things that are going to affect my performance. But was I pushing down through my forearms?
Yeah.
Was I tightening my core? That's me committing to excellence.
Again, it's back to the process, right? Like delivering the best you can, what you have within your control, rather than being perfect, right? So yeah, I love that. I love that distinction. Also, if I was to try a handstand on hard ground, it would not be good. But if I was to try it on a paddleboard, I can't even imagine. Like, I would just be in the water for sure. So I think I saw a
Until
video
you
of you doing
practiced.
that. Yeah, I could. I'm sure. Hey, I could do it with a lot of time and effort and stuff. But yeah, just wanted to make that side note that's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. But we have to be realistic too. I mean, there's a saying, don't be upset at the results you don't get because of the work you didn't do.
Yes.
Like, we got to do the work. And that's, again, talking about taking control and taking
Yep.
responsibility. You gotta do the work. And not everyone is going to make their dreams come true. Not everyone is going to,
Yeah.
but you will find other dreams.
Exactly.
Other things will come to you. You will find your place in the world
Even
when
if
you
you
do
don't,
the work.
yeah, even if you don't like think that was the dream, like your dreams are going to change so much in life. Yeah. Okay. So I want to get into like, and again, this is kind of related to, the internal versus the external, taking responsibility, but then also there is things that aren't going well. So I just had a call with a couple girls that are dealing with a difficult coach. And when I mean difficult, I mean a coach that really cares, but the coach is just really intense and does put a lot of pressure on. And I know that's the same for a lot of coaches. Like my club coach growing up, like they were like so intense and put so much pressure on us. And that did affect my confidence. And I'm grateful for it because it prepared me for college. But yeah, just related to like, I guess that external environment when a coach or a parent is negatively like contributing to an athlete's confidence, how does one, again, they have to take responsibility for, hey, what am I doing? Like, what's my internal look like? But how can an athlete kind of navigate dealing with like a really like difficult coach or parent in that regard?
Okay. Shay, this is a tough one because not
That's why I'm asking you.
But not every situation is the same. So when I give you this response, it's not for everyone, because I will tell you there are some situations when a tough coach is a bad coach. Like that coach needs not to be with that particular level of development, or maybe not a coach at all. And some parents need to zip it. So and I've actually been involved in certain situations where, a coach was not appropriate. Yeah. However, if we're talking to the athlete and, in a situation where, a coach is just a hard coach, but not a bad coach. And I guess that's where I want to make the distinction. Like,
sure,
there can be a hard coach and at the same time a bad coach, and then there's a hard coach that's a good coach.
Yeah, and maybe it's a coach that some people, it's great for them, right? Like for me, I didn't love super, super intense coaches, but there's some athletes that love that super hard-nosed coaching, right? So yeah, I guess for that athlete that doesn't love and doesn't really vibe with that super like hard-nosed approach.
Yeah. I remember learning, and I can't cite the study. It's been so long, and I really should put forth the effort to go find it. But I remember when I was in grad school, I learned about this study. It was a gymnastics coach. And this gymnastics coach, it was an organized study. He split his team into two teams. And they all took a baseline self-belief, the confidence survey. And then for 2 weeks, he gave two different types of coaching. To team A, to group A, it was all good job, do it again. Good job, do it again. It was the good job team. And the second group was only constructive feedback, not a single good job in the coaching. Do this, get your, spot your landing, hands up, eyes, always just very constructive.
Okay.
And at the end of the 2 weeks, they redid the same self-confidence study. The constructive feedback group had more self-confidence than the good job.
That was going to be my guess.
I should have asked. I should have paused.
I was going to wait. I was going to say, wait, let me guess. But that
sorry.
honestly was going to be my guess, that the constructive group had more confidence afterwards.
And why would you say that? What would you think?
I think because the feedback was something that was actually useful, that they could take and improve upon. And I think if there was constructive feedback with also negative, then I don't think that would have been the case. But if it was just constructive feedback, then the athlete also knows, hey, they care, they want to make me better.
You just nailed it. They care, they want to make me better, and they believe I can get better because they're taking the time to tell me. Whereas the other team eventually, oh my God, all they're saying is good job. They obviously don't believe in me.
Yeah.
They obviously don't believe in me, or they don't care enough to think about how I can improve. Now, the other group said, afterwards, it was it would have been nice to hear
once in a
good job every once in a while. But so as an athlete who has a hard coach who pressures them, I would just invite them to ponder the possibility that this is a coach who truly cares about them and a coach that truly believes in their ability to improve.
Yeah, for sure.
Invite them into playing around with that story.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that kind of releases a little bit of the tension that they've been feeling.
Right. Just looking at it with a different perspective.
Yeah. Now, if I can get to the coach too, if I can go in there and observe, sometimes a little good job works as well, but I prefer construct. John Wooden, NCAA basketball coach, no longer with us, but one of the most legendary coaches who, the amount of research, the majority of his coaching was constructive feedback. The second, but which was far, far less, was praise and very little punishment.
Interesting.
But the majority was constructive feedback, a little bit of praise, very seldom negative. And so this other thing, when then you got the negative, you knew he meant it.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
And the greatest thing, though, an athlete will not respond to a coach unless that athlete knows that coach cares.
Yeah. And I think I get that question a lot, from parents even, of my daughter's coach is destroying her confidence. I see that all the time. And my first thing to say is kind of what you said at the beginning, is if they're they might not be the right coach for your daughter, or they might not even, they probably shouldn't even be in that situation or coaching that age or that gender or whatever. So looking at that, but also, again, taking responsibility and how can I look at this a different way? Obviously, if it's an abusive environment, get out. But, if it's a good coach that cares, that you're just having a hard time, kind of matching up with, is there another way that you can look at it and see that they really do care, but they may just not always know how to show that, or show it in the way that you want, right?
Yeah. And then it's also, depending on the age of that athlete, an athlete can advocate, a young athlete can advocate for themselves. Yeah. We can create space where they can, and teach them communication skills, where they can ask for certain ways to be coached, and ask. I've taught many athletes to kind of get ahead of the coaching, teach the coach how to coach you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Without them even knowing it, because it's not necessarily you want them to think that they're being coached on how to coach from their athlete. But there's certain communication techniques. So we're not, but you're right. I mean, there are other times when it is not the right fit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Well, yeah, thank you for your take on that, because it is kind of a difficult thing to navigate sometimes. Okay, so shifting a little bit, I'd love to hear, I know you have a book. I'd love to hear a bit more about your book, and just give us kind of let's see, you wrote it, a year ago about?
Yeah, so it's I was going to say it's February, but we still have one day left of January.
Yes.
I don't know when this is being aired. But yeah, almost a year ago. It's called Personal Podium. And it is my take on sports psychology, obviously for sport and life. And I'm a big believer in storytelling.
Yeah.
especially for youth. We learn through, well, we all learn through stories, but I think youth really grasp it from stories. And so every chapter introduces what I think the nitty gritty of sports psychology is. And then with every chapter, I talk about some professional, high performance athlete, their story, and then an athlete. I changed the sport, I changed the name, but an athlete that I've worked with and how they incorporated this specific tool into their performance.
That's awesome.
So that's the book, and it talks about desire, belief, and focus. And then I talk about 6 specific psychological tools: goal setting, imagery. And I think I tweak it in ways that we may have not have heard about in mainstream sports psych talk. So that's one thing. And then if I could, I also just, this past week on my website, I have 3 master classes, and I really think they're good for youth.
Beautiful.
They're 30 to 40 minutes long, and it comes with a little bit of a training workbook, but one is self-belief. Mm-hmm. The other one is how to beat defeat. So how to kind of, work through your failures. Mm-hmm. And then one on the injury mindset, how to overcome an injury.
Yeah, because I get that question a lot too. It's something I went through. I tore my ACL when I was like 12, 13. So yeah, I think those would be awesome. We'll definitely link those. The book, Personal Podium. Was the book written for a certain age, or would you say like all ages, youth, college, pro? Like, what would you say there?
Yeah, I would say it was written for everyone, but I was very clear-minded to make sure that, an 8-year-old could read it, or a parent could, discuss it with them, all the way up to whatever age you're at. And it's an audio format too, so people can listen to it.
Did you narrate it?
I did.
Nice. That's cool. I thought about doing a narration, but my book will be audio soon, but I sold my rights to someone else who's going to narrate it. So
that's okay. You wrote a book. That's huge.
I wrote a book, and 5 years later, they're like, "Hey, is your audiobook available?" I was like, "Sure, yeah." So yeah, awesome. Don't know when it's going to happen, but okay, cool. Also, before kind of my last question for you is more of like a personal question, like related to, and obviously like you very much care about your health and your wellness, physically, mentally, all that kind of stuff. What are some non-negotiable habits of kind of just your wellness as a human being that you kind of stick to, and also, maybe even teach your athletes?
It's really important for me, and I'm sure looking at you and getting to know you now too, that I walk the walk and I talk the talk.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So you mentioned stillness, or one of us mentions stillness. I'm my happiest when I'm playing, when I'm outdoors and playing, but it's now habitual, but I take real, like when I go for a run, I'm okay to stop and take in. Mm-hmm. I don't need to, if I go a little bit over my time, or if I lose I take a moment and I'm still. And when you talk about specific things, so every morning, non-negotiable, when I'm at home, my partner and we go for a walk every single morning, and early, like 6:45, 6:50.
In Colorado.
In Colorado, yeah. Sometimes his schedule is more, but mine's in flux. But like sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes, and inevitably we make a comment about the sky.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but a sunrise, again, I'm lucky, twist my arm, live in Colorado, up in the mountains, but inevitably there's a moment where we look up and we talk about the sky. So we connect with nature, which I think is, and I know it's one of your pillars, it is like non-negotiable. Yep. And then I'm a big believer in fueling myself, but hydration. So one non-negotiable is every single morning before I eat anything is I drink 2 glasses of water and lemon.
Yes, lemon.
Just to kind of start my hydration. My coach calls it live water. And, those are really the non-negotiables. Stillness, walking in the morning with a intentional focus on the sky.
Yeah.
And water and lemon.
I love that. Yeah, the intentional focus on the sky and the horizon. There's like a lot that can do, like, because a lot of times we're so looking at something that's so close to us, right? But there's something so calming, and I know there's probably studies about it of why looking at a horizon is so calming and oh, it kind of opens up our awareness. And the sky, I mean, that's kind of, similar to the horizon, but that's, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes if I'm in a great place, I just admire the how lucky am I to be, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's clouds, but it's still cool, like what the cloud does. And if I'm not in a great space, looking up at the sky makes me feel small, and I say that in a good way.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, like when you're hiking or you see this vast thing, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so small," but it's not I'm small in a bad way. It's this powerful like I'm so small kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's not as big as
Not
I
as
thought. I'm not as big as
serious. It's not so
right.
serious. Like life is just yeah, you don't have to take everything so seriously all the time. Like your problems, so-called problems are so small in the grand scheme of everything, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, Haley, tell us. So we'll link your book. Where's the best place to buy the book?
If just my website is the best place to,
Awesome.
so the book link will be right on the homepage there. If you go to the coaching, which is the first menu, you can get those master classes. You can opt in, ask me a question. I think this is a cool thing. When you opt in and send me a message, I'm the one that gets them.
Not a
I,
robot.
not a robot, not another person. I get them. I will respond. I really, really take pride in answering people's questions. So my website's the best place to go to find
Beautiful.
all the
Okay.
social media stuff from there.
And then yeah, you're on Instagram and
Yeah.
other platforms. TikTok. Are you on
Yes.
TikTok?
I am not. I have an
Yes, me
account, but I'm
neither.
not. One of my greatest mental blocks was starting social media, but I do have a YouTube channel and Instagram and LinkedIn.
Yeah. I always tell my girls that I've said this for a long time that I will never, ever, ever get a TikTok. And I haven't. I've never been
No,
tempted to get one.
really?
Yeah.
Someone said to me, it was so funny, stop, drop, and TikTok. And I was like, what does
What is
that
that?
mean? Like,
Oh no.
I don't know. I don't know. I hear that at this point in the time, maybe they're turning it off or something. I don't.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
they turn it off and then they turn it back on. I don't really know. So yeah. Anyways, well, thank you so much for coming on, Haley. This was such an amazing conversation that I
Thanks,
know
Shannon.
I got a lot out of, and I'm sure the listeners did too. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll make sure we link everything and get your book and all that stuff too. So I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you and all that you're doing. It's a great mission, and
Thank you.
I'm glad you decided to come back and do it.
Yes. Well, it's talking to people like you that always brings me back. So thank you.